may be in traffic.
Maybe.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. This is our free skill builder, which we have the first Saturday of each month. And this week we have Terry Johnson with us, who is going to share with us how we can add a little bit of color to our woodwork.
Yes.
All right. It's all for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm a collector of hobbies. I start things and I work through them and I might pick them up later and whatever. I started this 30 years ago, 34 years ago. My daughter was about 10. And I picked it up twice since then. Each time I've had to relearn things or try things. I've had a great deal of enjoyment of it, and then all of a sudden I have to move. We have to have space for this, like woodworking. And there's been times I've been roommates with people, times I've had a small place that I had to share with someone, so I've had to give it up. But I always come back to it. I love the color. I love the textures. They just draw me to them. I'm going to give you a brief outline of how to do this. I gave you handouts, 14 pages of handouts, by the way. Which some people were helping correlate. Thank you very much, very much. The handouts will give you a brief outline of how I do my glass, and and I'll touch on how other people might do their glass. Glass is similar to woodworking. Every time you ask a different glass artist how to do something, they will give you a different variety of choices of how to do it. Probably not the same each time. So I am going to default to my style, what I do. I don't do intricate 2,000-piece glass pieces. I'm not that attentive. I don't enjoy it if it's more than 250 pieces. So I just don't do it. I brought some pieces of glass to show you, and they're over here, and feel free to touch them. A couple of them have been hanging up for 5 years without anyone dusting them because they were on the upper level of a almost 2-story room. I took them down this morning with the help of a 6-foot-tall guy, and I didn't have the time to dust them or clean them, so they're over there. What else do I want to tell you? Glass is very similar to woodwork. You take a piece of glass off, you can't glue it back on, just like wood. Once it's off, it's off. There's multiple different styles. With woodworking, we saw pieces and we call them cut. In glass, we score and we call it cutting. We score and break them, but it's called cutting. So we don't use scissors to cut glass. We don't use torches. We score it, and then we break it along, and hopefully along the line. And then if we're really, really good, we don't have to use the grinder, which I have set up over there. But I don't even try to be that good. I'm still practicing, and I use the grinder a great deal. The grinder is similar to a routing tool. You have it on, it's going so many things, how many rounds per minute? Revolutions per minute. And it's grinding the glass edge with a diamond bit. Something else that's similar to glass moves. Glass does move. It's not considered a solid. We look at it, we pick it up. If I touch it, I'm not going to put my finger through it, but as it gets hot, it starts flowing. So the cathedrals over in Europe that have been up there for years and years, glass, it's at the bottom of each piece, it's a little bit thicker than at the top because gradually it has moved. There's been different theories, but I definitely believe in that one because that makes sense to me. If I don't look at this, I'm going to bounce all over the place. So, I worked at Fort Riley for about 12 years, and they have an EIAIO in the Army, the battalions, the brigades, the combat zones, we have big name companies from different places around the world. Yokomo, Delphia, Spectrum, Oceanside, and they're created out there, and different glass comes from different areas. If you go to a glass shop, they generally have pieces and parts of all these glasses around. Big names distributors that you can find online are listed, but anything stained glass. I've been shopping through anything stained glass recently because I go to a local store and it's more expensive. Now you have to wait a couple weeks, but anything stained glass is a place online that you can shop. I really don't like buying glass there unless I really know what I am, because I'm a touchy, looky, gotta feel the texture type of person. So you can go, there's J&D in Olathe, and they have their glass shop in their basement. And there's Gene Stained Glass in Riverside. Gene Stained Glass is absolutely gorgeous. I haven't been to J&D, but I get overwhelmed when I go to Gene Stained Glass because they have racks and racks and racks of glass. You could get fused glass projects there. You could get glass for mosaics, which are options. I encourage you, if you're interested in that, try those. They have fused glass, cut glass. They have all the tools you want to get from there. You could walk out spending multiple dollars and have your shop set up without any problem. You can order it online through Anything Stained Glass or Inline Crafts, Timeless Tiffany, Schmidt Stained Glass. I think Schmidt's out of Florida. You can just look online for that. I looked on Facebook for maybe a source. Oh my gosh. We have sources there that are for patterns. They advertise patterns. They advertise free patterns. They advertise their own shops. They advertise glass for sale. There's glass sites for beginners. There's tutorials. YouTube has multiple things, so you can use those. I do encourage you not to just go and buy things and come home and cut, kind of like with woodworking. You're not quite sure what you're doing. Gene Stained Glass is fantastic for all the supplies. I said I haven't been to J&D's. They might be fantastic for all the supplies too. But J&D's has a new class started, several classes starting every month. So they do a beginning stained glass, a beginning fusing, a beginning bead making, a soldering class. So J&D is where I'd start if I was you. Do whatever you want. We have all these supplies we need to do stained glass. Let's see, did I complete that? Okay. You need space. You need space and I trade them out. This is my cutting space. This is my putting it on a board to lay it out space after I've got it pretty much ready to solder, and it has a straight edge here and here so that I can make a square edge. And then I have my grinding space. So I lift things up, put them on the floor, pick them up here, because my space is not organized to give me this much space. So general supplies you need to start out with is, these are running pliers. The running pliers are plastic on the outside, and they have a line down the middle, and that is where it's going to have an up dip. So when after you have scored your glass and you're ready for it to break, you put them in the running pliers, and one side bends this way and one side bends this way, and it adds to the break. So maybe you want to try them, maybe you don't. Here are Grozer pliers, Grozers. pliers. These are specially for glass. They have a flat side and a rounded side. So this side goes round, this side goes straight across. When you're cutting your piece, when you're trying to break it at the right place, you'll put the flat side on the top of the glass, and the bottom side touches right at the tip, and you're not going to break it, you're going to pull it apart. The Grozer pliers. And we have some pattern shears. Looks like scissors, right? Pretty good, except they have two blades. Two blades here, and the blade cuts a little strip out. Because when you have a pattern and you want all your glass to fit together, you're going to need some space between the pieces of glass for the foil you'll use to tape around the glass. So, Grozers. Well, I'm going to keep the foil for a minute. Okay. I use a Sharpie. There are different ways of outlining your... You all know that stained glass is like creating a puzzle, and you're trying to put it together, and you want all the pieces to fit, and if they don't fit, you have to work really hard. So I take my pattern piece and I draw it on the glass, and since my pattern piece is the size I want, I then take my glass cutters, of which I have a variety here, and I go around close to the pattern. Now I have two types of glass cutters. There's actually many types. These are the old-fashioned, cheapy, couple of dollars glass cutters. They don't have an oil dipper, so when you use these, if you get these, you'll be taking your glass oil, cutting oil, dipping this in there, and then cut your piece. So you'll have a little sponge or something to do that. So you keep oil between the glass diamond head and the glass. I'm going to show you how to do all this in a few minutes, but here are oil-filled glass cutters. I don't have to worry about the oil anymore. I use these, and the oil flows to the diamond cutter, the round cutter, and keeps it moist that way. So here's two other styles. All of these have a round, heavy end, which I will use to cut a glass. Yes?
On the ones that are filled with oil, you have to open the top so it allows the oil to flow out.
No. It just comes. You only open this to fill it. And I have a little, probably not in my viewpoint, but a little bitty syringe to pull up the oil and put in there. Okay. You'll need solder. Solder comes in different mixtures of alloy. If you are making earrings or something that goes next to the skin, or you're making something you want to put rolls in or food in of some kind, you'll want lead-free solder. There's 50-50, lead-free, 32, 67 or 8, something like that, things. They all start melting about 360 degrees. The lead-free has to get hotter than it's all but the lead. Lead-free has to be warmer so for it to melt than any of these alloys. Okay.
Do you wear a mask? Are there toxic fumes when you work?
Oh, thank you, because I was going to talk about safety.
Okay.
Very good.
Guys, reminder, please use microphones when you're asking questions so we can all hear.
I don't
They're right
see-
there.
Okay.
My question was, do you need to wear a mask? Are there toxic fumes when you use the,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yes, you will. A well-ventilated area is what I do, because I don't solder 8 hours. Okay. This tool, I sometimes use this instead of. This will take the foil and push it down against the glass, trying to get all the wrinkles out and trying to get the foil to adhere to the glass very solidly. So I burnish it with this tool. It has a special name. It's also used for lead cane projects to widen it or to help push it together. And the foil you'll need. The foil is copper on one side. On the other side, it is adhesive. The side that has adhesive has different colors you can buy. You could buy black, you could buy copper, you could buy silver. So when you're getting your copper foil, your foil, you might want to think about how you're going to finish the glass before you buy the foil. Because if you're going to finish it in copper, you don't want silver showing through the glass where the edge of the foil is shown through. It also comes in different widths. I have it in the material, the widths it comes in. The glass comes in different thicknesses, so you want to know what glass you're doing. You also want to know how wide you want your lines in a stained glass piece to be finished, because you're going to be putting this foil on the edge and then wrapping it around both sides. So it has a little bit of little flavor of the glass. Nope, I didn't bring any. Okay. Take one of these and pass them around, please. Thank you. Thank you. I don't make very many big projects, as I already said. But if you're making a big project,
Question about the copper on the edge of the glass. Does it need to be continuous, or can it be spliced in if you have shorts and stuff?
it can be spliced in, very much so, and it can be overlapped. To get really fancy, you could put this on the glass, on the front of the glass, and cut it. So you have little lines for tree limbs or butterfly wings or something. Also, you can use, for that, and I'm kind of going off, I have some plastic covered copper. I'd take the plastic off. Or I have copper wire that I could add to on top of the piece to make antennas, lines, stems, texture. So the copper can be used for texture. You can get some little filigree things that you would tin before you'd add on. And I think I'll remember to go over it again. Tin to put on top of your project, and that could be covered with solder when you're done. So I have, this is what it looks like when it comes from anything stained glass. This is what it looks like 20 years ago from Hobby Lobby. So they've changed how it is. You need a brush, because you're going to be cleaning your stained glass every time you turn around. When you're cutting the glass, if it's dirty, the break will not be clean. You won't get a solid one. Miscellaneous, I don't use these very often. Nippers. They have a special name on them. I wrote it down, but these are basically sharp on both sides, evenly cut. You could cut wires, you can cut foil, you can cut different designs out with these. These are I went to Gene Stained Glass and I said, Gene, I want to show them what types of things we can use to frame, what the different items are we might need to buy for a piece of stained glass. And we together found the less expensive of the group. So there's lots of expensive ones. Brass, copper, zinc, lead cane, different widths, different lengths. I mean, they're mostly this length, but different widths, depths. In the handout, I said that there was there's H kind, there's U, and there's Y shapes. There we go. So this not a good use for pattern shears. Okay. This is what they call zinc. The zinc, this comes in, this is a U zinc, so it looks like a U on the end. It goes up on both sides. It's square on the edges. This also comes wider, deeper. It comes with a one piece of metal down, so that would be a Y-shaped. So it goes around and then down. It comes in an H shape, so you could put a piece of glass here and a piece of glass here. It's soldered to the glass with the solder. It can be cut. I have several pieces of glass over there with this around it. I framed these two in zinc. You cut it to length. Don't cut it off here. You just make little notches like you were going to fold a napkin and cut out. Bend it that way, cut it out, bend it, and like the foil, you can take separate pieces to do that. Then you put solder on the corners, and this gives it a stability. This is one, I got bored in my 50s. I was living in a place where I had lots of room, but nothing really my own, but the craft area was not being used. So I took it over, and I took my glass, and I made 27 of these, different colors. The variety is wonderful with these. This one here has water glass here and here, different kinds of glass. This is a glue chip. It looks rough on the inside there. This is solder, so the foil and the solder, and I have put a patina on it, which is black. Haven't gone over that, need to go over that. So that'll be here for you guys to look at. This one, I had to cut and bend, not cut through, but nip out the parts that would overlap, and then solder them. This one also is primarily bevels. You have 5 bevels and only 4 pieces of glass to cut. This is relatively simple. Okay. The bevels that you have a variety of, and Gene's stained glass, and I'm not really advertising for him, but I know his stuff. He has oodles and gobs of bevels. He has bevel shapes. Craig's been there. He has bevel shapes that will go together and make a fleur-de-lis. It'll make an antique piece of glass. It'll make a deer head. Bevels are thicker pieces of glass with a camphor on the outside to make it back down to thin enough to use with the regular stained glass. Sometimes they have etching in them. Sometimes they have a texture. They come in different sizes. I have boxes of square and rectangular bevels. I haven't seen very many that have a color to them. All Gene's are clear. This is clear. So I enjoyed it. These copper things on the corner are what's called jump rings. I make my own. You can buy them. You can spend your money any way you want. But I take wire and I take it around a pencil or a magic marker, and then I cut it down one edge, and then I tin it with the solder, and tinning is covering that so it's all one color, and solder them together and put them on the corners. They don't, oh, I gotcha. This is not the only option for hanging glass, because a lot of people like to hang it in windows. I have done that traditionally until I started woodworking. So hang it in glass. There are other devices you can buy. There is a piece of metal they make that's as thin as the edge of the glass, but at the top it has a hole in it, and you could solder it right down there right in the seam there, and it'll be very solid, and then you could hang it up. I was taught to always put 2 hangers on this and to hang them up separately, because glass and metal fail sometimes. I made my mom and dad a set of 3 stained glass to go in their kitchen window, and I came in one time and one of them was sideways. It had fallen. It was still hanging. It didn't fall down. It wasn't broken, but the piece that I put on there came off. So all I had to do was go and repair that. All stained glass can be repaired. It takes time and a little persnickety stuff. So, Richard, that'd be right up your alley. I can't do it all the time. Pieces of glass that are over 2 or 3 feet wide or tall might need stabilization. Glass is like wood, it's going to move. Solder gets hot, it's going to move. Tape gets, the adhesive comes off a little bit. You might find a little bow in it, like a little hammock in your glass if you're not careful. So this is to help with those bigger pieces. This is thin enough to go between pieces of glass. It's a piece of copper, and you can solder it in there. While I'm talking about this, I'm going to talk about hinge points. Anyone know what a hinge point is? Glass? Anyone done? Okay. Okay. By the way, great plans go aside when life happens. Okay? Life happened 3 months ago and I'm not recovered yet. So this was going to be part of a lamp. Okay. From here down, there's a couple hinge points. Because this right here, if it didn't have something like this going on, could fold. It folds, your glass piece is going to fall apart and the piece is going to come out. So hinge points. When you're doing copper foil in this, if you wanted to make sure if this is a huge piece and you're afraid of it, you might go copper foil across here so that it makes it nice and solid this way and won't go this way on you. You might make it go up and over so that, and then maybe this one go this way. I don't know how you would do it, but you would put this copper in there, in that seam, and it will give it more stability. So I don't know how industrious you guys are going to be with your stained glass, but this is a must if you're going to make big ones. I have found my enjoyment of stained glass to be bigger cuts and bigger pieces. It just shows. I did a 45-piece glass that was 4 foot by 3 foot, and the glass just sparkled in it. So you don't have to get very intricate. You will notice online and around there are some very detailed, hard cuts people make. And there's some limits a person can do when they're cutting glass that machines have come over and made it less difficult. So I can't remember, I gotta look up his name. One gentleman is noted for his absolutely gorgeous glass. I mean, he has the Green Man that's very, very known around the world. He has just beautiful, but there is none of his stained glass could I cut. One, I wouldn't have the time and effort to do it. Two, the wiggles and the shapes of his glass are very tiny and will easily break. Yeah.
Can you cut a hole or a void in a larger piece of glass?
You can.
Huh.
You can. If you have a huge piece of glass, it's easier than if you have a small piece of glass putting in there. And I use my grinder to make holes in wine bottles when I want to make lamps. Just use the grinder and kind of go at it slowly. Whenever I use a grinder, you must have it lubricated, so water has to be there. The grinding bits go from a 1/4 inch wide to, what size do I have? I have the biggest ones. What is this, 3/4 of an inch? Something like that on here. And they can be replaced and are replaceable. And I can go in pretty deep for a indent. But as I said, the glass, if I took a big piece of glass, I might be able to cut a 3-inch circle in it, but it would take me a long time because as you're not really cutting glass, you're breaking glass. And so it has a chance of breaking and just going all the way through. So, what is that guy? Justin Beanie, B-E-E-N-I-E. It's in your paperwork underneath sources. He has patterns he'll sell you. 500-piece patterns for a 14 by 12-inch piece. I'm not going to do that. But you can also get, any bookstore has stained glass. And I have several stained glass books over there I've gathered through the years. Any bookstore, of course, J&D, Gene Stained Glass, Hobby Lobby, any place that sells, sometimes even at the supermarket, you'll see a magazine with stained glass, has patterns in it. Online are multiple patterns. I have, as I like to do simple things, I've started making my own patterns. And I'll talk to you about how I make my own patterns to give you an idea of what you can do. But you can start off with a comic strip, or a comic book, or a character, or a picture of your dog or cat, or another person, and using line and shape, taking out the unnecessary lines, checking it for how you can cut it, that kind of thing, you can make your own pattern. I do encourage you to be careful when you're cutting patterns, and I'll tell you why when you're finding a pattern. I'll tell you more about that when I tell you about how I make patterns. Other tools you might want to use, not necessary, but needle nose pliers, sponges. It has to be wet in order to get a good cut, an oil or a good clean, good grind. And you're going to want to clean your glass every time you turn around. I just cleaned this blue one so I could show you how to cut. Let me tell you about my successes and failures. Okay. Success and failures number 1. I found this piece of wood about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, here in the not to be thrown away pieces of wood. I loved the outside. I kept it and I kept it and I kept it. Couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. And then I said 3 months ago that, hey, I will do a stained glass skill builder. So I started cutting a hole in it. I am not that good at skill building at wood yet. I'm still working on it. And I think I worked 2 months on this hole. Then I also drew it. You have to have a ledge in it. So there's a ledge for it to set on, an indent. And I took that shape. I knew I wanted to put a feather in it. So I made a feather. I tacked the feather together. And then I figured out what pieces I wanted on the outside. And I was specifically thinking of you guys because I wanted to use textured glass here so you could see how different textures of glass shine. As I was working on this, the failure part, okay, I had to figure out how to put the holes in. I had to figure out how to get this. I had to figure out all that woodworking stuff. I did one of the rules, the cautions in stained glass, incorrectly. I overheated my glass. It's not in here permanently because this piece is cracked from the overheating. I need to take it out, recut it, place it back in, refoil it, and all that stuff before I make it permanent. But I think I'll be proud of it when it's done. Another success and failure. I didn't make this box. This box was graciously made by a fellow woodworker. He worked hard on this. He talked to me about my desire, what I wanted. He gave it to me unfinished, which is what I wanted. It has the 6-inch circle I wanted with an indent in there. It's fantastic. I designed my own piece and put it in there. I have baubles in there. I have thickness and thinness of stained glass solder around there. I have a textured piece that I have showing, which is not the traditional way of showing glass, by the way. Texture usually goes away from the viewer, so it'll catch light and throw out light in front. I have some opalescent, my baubles. Some of them have streakies. And then I've been working on finishing this. And time's coming short. And it's getting shorter. And I put too much shellac on this, and so now it needs to be sanded down and flattened a little bit more. I'm not happy with the shellac. But the piece is going to be neat. We agreed, if he made the box and I made the glass, this is going to go at First Fridays and be sold for the woodworkers. So I have 2 out of my 3 projects I showed you, okay? I worked on, where's that piece I just had? This one. I had these done 3 months ago. So I'd already decided I was going to make a lamp. And I have the pattern of the lamp. I found it in a woodsmith. It's a very simple glass, but you know, I got to make myself my own. I don't follow directions very well. And so I've been working on that wood. And I worked on these. And this was the 3rd project I made after I reset up my glass shop. And I forgot some basic rules, which is also like woodworking. Everything's relative. Once you make a shape or a size, you got to fit everything to it. So late at night, I'm enjoying cutting glass, and I'm cutting, and I'm cutting, and I'm cutting, and I start to put together the next day, and I realized it wasn't wide enough here. Also, these pieces didn't quite fit, so I did a lot of grinding on this, a lot of thinking, decided to put some textured glass on the outside, which may or may not show too well, because about that much is what you're going to see on this. I still haven't figured out how I'm going to wire it. I don't know what lampshade I'm going to do, but the bottom piece is going to be done sometime this summer. Okay. So I never got back to that. I will plan on it. Other things you might want to have is a bench brush. A brush like we have over there, but just for your glass. The glass breaks. It leaves shards and splinters. They hurt. You want to wear closed-toed shoes for safety. You want to have an apron so it doesn't get caught in your clothing. Between you and your clothing article, if there's a piece of shard glass in there, you might also have a little bit of blood showing. You want to have safety glasses on because those shards splatter. Also, the chemicals we use splatter. So I'm always, a lot of people use gloves. I don't use gloves. You know, I could come to this wood shop and start cutting wood, and I'll leave my DNA all over the place. I haven't left my DNA in my glass shop all summer. Don't know what it is. Maybe just how I pick it up. I learned how to pick up glass. But I don't need the gloves to keep my fingers from cutting. And I don't solder close to my fingers, so you need distance. Keep the solder in your heating wand far enough away that you don't end up burning yourself. Let's see, what else do I need? You need a brush to brush it off. You need closed-toed shoes. I use a broom, a regular broom and dustpan to sweep the floor around me. I don't have small kids, but you might section off your area if you have small children or people that are clumsy walking around. That'll happen. Glass won't cut you if you're holding it like this. And when you're holding big pieces of glass and you're walking, you don't walk with them in front of you, because if you drop it, it'll go on your toes and cut that. Okay? So you hold it like this. Don't run your finger on it to see if it's sharp. It is sharp. Okay. Brush to clean, water. What do you think?
I said, it's the first thing I did. I picked it up.
Uh-huh. You do it without thinking. I got in a car the other day and it has adaptive speed control. I had to really think to not put my gas on and let it up. DAP will be used to keep this in here and this in here. DAP will be used. Any kind of silicone caulking can keep small projects in. You can also use glazier tape. I can't pronounce it correctly, but glazier tape. And the mirror holders kind of stick up. They have a spot here where you can tack them into the wood, and their piece of glass fits right in here. Mirror holders to hold it. You can also, they have some things you can buy in stained glass shops that will hold glass in. And there's some little square tack type things you could use to hold glass in. I caution you about putting metal against the glass unless it is the solder or whatever, because in vibrations, and we do have a lot of vibrations in this world we don't even feel, they will eventually crack your glass. So if I was holding this in with a nail angled, it will eventually crack the glass. So don't do that. Glass on top of glass will scratch glass. Glass will be detrimental to itself. So you want a piece of paper in between. You don't have to have a lot, just some paper to keep it from scratching itself. I have boxes of glass scraps, and if they get scratched, I don't care. They're glass scraps. They show the different variety of glass. This one is water glass. See how it's transparent. There's only one color in it. It has a wavy pattern on it. This side's a wavy pattern. This side is a flat side. So when glass will generally have a texture side and more of a solid straight side, and the wavy side. There are some absolutely gorgeous pieces of stained glass that are made solely out of water glass. Clear, different colors, different tints, but all this texture and clear through. I brought over here some opaque glass. Opaque glass is just what we say it is. You can't see through it. You might put that on a shower wall or on a piece you don't need lit up or light's not going to show through. Here's another piece that's very highly textured. You can see all the shades of browns and greens in here. This is almost art glass. Art glass is a very expensive piece of glass that if you look at it, you might be able to find a scene or a tree or something to use in your piece, or maybe the moon. Here's another piece of opaque glass, not a little texture, not a big texture. And the pattern I'm going to make is going to be made out of this glass. It's an opaque. Top of the box, I'm going to make an alternative top of the box. I may make a different box for it, but I'm going to make an alternative for it.
Is there a significant difference on the same kind of glass between the different colors?
It's a whole rainbow of colors. So if you get water glass, the whole rainbow, if you get it all from one company, it's going to be the same thickness, pretty much close to the same thickness. It's going to cut the same. It's going to be just a variety of colors. I have two greens over there. I think they're both opaque. But you can make subtle differences. A rainbow, you can make changes in a building just by picking the color. They have something called architectural glass. It's thicker. It has more of a solid set of lines on it, printed. So that texture is very regimented throughout. Some textures have flowers in them. I haven't used this. This is architectural glass. You might see this on our library door or a bathroom. You can't see through it, but you can see through it. And it has a strong texture on it. So, we have iridized glass. Here's two pieces of iridized glass. This is iridized glass. It shows different colors of purples and pinks in it. I use it for the background. I use it for a change, maybe a vase and a bunch of flowers. Here's an iridized glass. It's a wispy with iridized on the outside. When you're using iridized glass, the patina might change the color. So there's a specific way, if you have a piece with iridized glass in it, you tape off the glass before you patina it. Or you wipe it off real quick, or you use cotton swabs and only swab it where you want it to be. Yes? Do you want to give?
You always talk about glass. Is plexiglass an option? What are the disadvantages of plexiglass?
You can always put plexiglass in there, but it's going to melt when you solder it. And some of the glass has a little bit of the plastic in it. Some of the more hobby glasses, some of the cheaper ones, or the most versatile. If I was making a panel, I might put plexiglass on the front and back before I hang it in a door. But I wouldn't use plexiglass for a stained glass piece. I think it would be a waste of my time and energy. It doesn't cut the same, and so I guess no. I guess quick answer is no. Yeah. If you want to work with plastic, though, there is ways of using this plastic the same way. Okay.
Could you use, instead of the lead between the pieces, could you use epoxy?
Oh, yes, and that's one of the things I want to make sure you guys know. I'm showing you stained glass, but you can use epoxy in it. You can glue glass pieces onto another piece of glass and fill it with depth on there, or epoxy. You can take mosaics and make little squares and make a mosaic, or little designs, and glue them on glass and fill them with concrete. I have a friend who kept my glass for a while. He made a tabletop. He took a ready-made table that was glass. He put stained glass all over it, made sure it fit like stained glass, so it looked like a stained glass table, but it was supported by the other glass. Then they put lights on underneath it, so fairy lights underneath it. It's gorgeous. It was an outdoor. The lights are broken, the table's still there. Okay. Anything else?
How about, all of these are flat. Can you build it with a bow in it?
You can do fused glass, which is another idea. You have a kiln, and it gets up to, 200 degrees? And fused glass is a wonderful beauty, and I didn't take it off my wall. I have one piece of fused glass. I didn't make it, but I have one piece of fused glass. It's beautiful, and it's an art form all to itself. You'll need specialty glass that will melt more in a kiln, and you can make your own molds or buy the molds. You could take pieces of glass and glass ribbons and put them on there, and it just makes beautiful. Mine is poppies. I got mine, it's a little tiny dish and it has poppies on it, and it's beautiful. You can also paint on glass. There is glass paint. You can take and make that. I just, on one of my Facebook pages, read a post by a woman who took her glass pattern. She was doing a woman with hair. She took the glass she wanted for the hair and put it in the kiln over a texture thing that would make it look more curly. She made the face out of one piece of kind of a peachy glass she wanted, and then she painted the eyes on it, and she tinted the cheeks, and she added some copper wires on it for the earrings and the necklace. I mean, it was all these skills got put together in this one piece, and it was amazing. I'm never going to do that, but she was amazing. Okay. All right. I've been talking and talking and talking. Do you want to see anything cut? Oh, I haven't finished this. Sorry. This is H cane. Not H cane, H zinc. So you can put a piece of glass in here and in here together. And this could be either as the support in the middle of a piece or as how you're going to put pieces together. Now this is lead cane. This is my nemesis. I say nemesis, so I look back on all the things I've made, and I've made several things with lead in between. Let me show you the pieces. I have with the lead, it's in place of copper foil. So you don't have to use copper foil. You can add it with copper foil, lead and copper foil together, make your own art piece. But if you do copper foil or lead in separate pieces, that's okay. So I took the lead and I wrapped it around here. And this is a simple form. There's no fitting. No glass had to be ground to fit in this piece. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of glass, 3 baubles. I had the ring. The ring was a metal that I could solder to, and I put them all together. The cane, this has to be stretched. So I would hand one end to him, and I'd take one end. We both have pliers, and we'd pull it. And we'd pull it until it broke. And that'll stretch it supposedly enough so it won't stretch later. I haven't found that to be true in mine. That's why it's my nemesis. So the angel's over there, the angel right here. I made a set of 3 for each of my family members. I kept a set of three for myself. I gave away multiple of them. When I was pulling out mine, there's not enough strength between this right here, the flat part, and here on several of them, and they folded over. So this was a hinge point. These and these, after I did, I took to a place and they chromed them. They could chrome them in any style you want. Costs you a little extra money, and I don't know where that place would be anymore. This was 30 years ago when I was in Topeka using a Topeka company. But they will put a color on the outside, and it makes it look very finished. And it feels plastic when you're done on the outside. They've covered it in plastic. Here is a bevel that has faceted. This is made of lead cane and wire that I twisted. I have this one, I have harp. This is the harp. I have a trumpet. I have a candle and something else that I made in all my angels. My sister still shows hers off. I haven't seen any of the others since. Okay. I made these in 2 different sizes. And I saw at Gene's glass shop, he has one for sale up there. And if you want to go buy it, it costs less to buy it there right this moment with the price on it than it does to make it today. Okay?
I have a question. Is that one piece of glass on the leaf that you have the line through?
Yes, thank you. Because this leaf is one piece of glass, and I took a piece of the copper wire and I fastened it here and here. I tinned the wire so it would be solder covered, and then when I took it in, it went ahead and with chrome too. And I picked this one up rather than my other several that I have there. So it's two different textures of the same color green to show you could do that. And these baubles are covered with the lead cane, surrounded by lead cane, whereas the box baubles are surrounded by the lead foil. So you'll notice that this looks very neat. That one doesn't look neat, but I like the organic look on some things. So I did that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions while we're going through the discussion part? Oh, you probably want to know this. This is a soldering wand. I have two of them here. One I haven't opened yet. This is from 30 years ago. It's a Weller. The Weller wands 30 years ago lasted forever. They lasted forever. They were good quality, heavy duty, heated up evenly. It does not have a thermostat. So when it heats up, this is the heat it gets. This is it. I've used this for 30 years. It still works great. One side, this side right here, is damaged. So when I now use it, I try to get that to start working, but it really doesn't work. The other side is where I can do the glass, and you can look at this. Weller changed companies and changed hands.
Have you ever had that tested as to what temperature that tip gets up to?
No, I tested it by soldering, and it gets to the right temperature. It works. Yeah. I'm looking for my haiku. I have a brand new one. It's here.
It's underneath your paperwork.
Oh, thank you. Haiku is the one that they say online is a better soldering wand. It has a temperature control on it. It has a tip that's a little bit smaller than that one. I haven't got this ready to use yet. Haven't used it, but I made sure this was not a counterfeit copy, because there are multiple counterfeit copies of this same one, and they'll burn up immediately. They cost less, and they burn up, and they're not good. Someone's making lots of money on it because a lot of stained glass artists are complaining about them. I made sure mine was solid. Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Hakko. Okay. You have different systems you can use to cut glass. Mine is the Morton system. It was the up-and-coming thing 30 years ago. It is a hand tool. It's not a motorized tool. You can get motorized cutters. They're called ring tools. You can use tile cutters. They might cut something. But when you're doing, oh, this is another one of my favorite kinds of glass. Pretty. When you're cutting glass, you cannot make a right angle cut into it. Just like you can't make a real deep curve in it, because the breaking of the glass will go everywhere. But a motorized tool might make, and does, make a square into glass. I know this for sure because my friend who held on to my glass and gave it all back to me, thankfully, had cut a square out of a piece of corner. And it was cut by his motorized tool. and it was perfectly square. And I just cut it out because I'm not going to even try. Here is a piece of wispy glass. It's kind of gray. I would call this an industrial glass because it's thicker and heavier. Maybe not totally industrial, but it also has a few bubbles in it. You will find glass from anything from, they call it antique. It barely shows any lines in it. It's just a little bit of a variation in the texture, and it's gorgeous. To highly textured where you almost can't see through it. These three are hammered glass. That's what they call them. They did not take a hammer and make this, but there's three hammered glasses. This one's a fine hammer. This one is, it's almost not hammered, it's so hammered. It's really intricate. And this one is a medium one. So you could take the same thing. Thank you. I like a glass that has little bubbles in it. I think it's very delicate and beautiful. Talk about difficult to cut. It'll catch that bubble and go any direction it wants to go. Maybe not the direction you want it to. I don't think I brought anything with that. Before I go on to anything else, I want to show you these other two. With assistance, it's one of my first pieces. It is all clear. The design is totally because of the wire, the foil, and the different textures in there. Here's water glass, here's hammered glass. There's a break because it's been hanging for a long time. Here is, I don't know the name of this, but it's heavily textured. You can feel it on the other side. Here's kind of a architectural glass that's up and down. I was hoping it had the bubbles in it, but it doesn't. Here's the bevels. I covered it in zinc on the outside. I used the rings up here and where I tinned and then added them to it. Make sure they're solid. When you're adding the tin rings, they have an opening. Make sure it's connected to the piece or else it might just come undone. That's been hanging in my daughter's house for 5 years. This one has also been hanging in my daughter's house for 5 years. I did not want to make the outside traditional, so I added color to the outside. This is almost an art glass because it has multiple colors in it. It was a little more fragile glass. This is a highly textured bubble glass, so there's some bubbles in that. Wispy glass. I guess that's all the kinds of glass in it. Thank you. I had great fun making this. I made one like for my mom, but I added a vase here. And one of the ways you can you can make it 3D is by putting glass on top of glass. So you cut the color of the vase out and you would solder it on top of there. You'd fix this, you'd fix that, same way. And then you'd solder it from one to the other. And I like how it turned out because it makes it look like it's water in a vase. Some of these are iridized, by the way. Yeah, this is iridized. I had someone else pick the colors out for this one. You will find yourself going to a type of glass. You will find yourself going to water glass and want to make everything out of total water glass. You'll find yourself going totally towards wispy glass. You'll find yourself wanting to go totally textured, heavy colors. You'll find yourself wanting opal glass or something. I have found I like the mixture of the clear glass with the transparent, the water glass. So I get clear glasses, well, I like this. I have some wispy, here's some iridized, and then the texture on the outside. This is only being held in by tape, folks, so if you touch it, be aware. I'm going to have to repair it anyway, but I appreciate it. Any other questions for this? Because I've talked and talked. I wanted to show you more. Okay.
Could you give us a demonstration on your cut board here?
Aren't you a good side man? Robin, you're Robin to my Batman. Appreciate it. Clean the dust off. One thing I didn't bring was a dry rag. This is a Morton system. There are several different systems of cutting materials. You do not have to have any system. You can just take a piece of cardboard and put it down, or a piece of indoor-outdoor carpeting and put it down. If the glass shards are on that, you want to make sure you clean it off before you put another piece of glass down. This is a straight edge, very easy to use. My original Morton system did not have this piece to it. I like this piece for straight edges because it helps me keep my cutting device, this is my favorite one, straight up and down. You know, when I was taking the hand tool class, I was told how not to let the saw go this way or this way to see reflections. When you're cutting with this, you want this to not go right or left or up or down. You also, once you start making a cut, a score, you don't start and stop again, and you don't go over it again. It'll change the direction of your cut, and it'll hurt your tool and not get you out what you want from that. So first I'll cut a straight edge. This right here can be placed anywhere. I don't have to have, I have this piece and this piece. There's a hole in this, which goes here. And if I wanted to angle, I can make it go like this, and I have a piece that can fit under to make the angle. If I wanted it to be straight edge, I could put this here and it'll go straight up like that. But this also does that. Okay, makes it 90-degree angle. So I'm going to use the slide. Something else very important. This is a plastic grid. Plastic grid. The shards and the dust goes down in here, and that keeps it away from your glass, keeps it from falling on the floor, keeps your fingers from touching it and cutting. It's kind of a safety item. They have specific places for that to go to make sure it goes straight up and down. And I generally go like this. So I have that line. I have this line right here where I'm going to line this center piece up with so that it makes a perfect 90-degree. It won't fit in there unless it's set right. Okay. This is wide enough that I can take the glass and slide it back and forth in between. Again, when you're doing this, don't run your fingers up and down the side of the glass. It's really easy to do. If I wanted it to be this glass to be a certain width, like I did for these panels, I tried to make all exactly alike, then I can set it up so that these things stop it kind of like a, what do you call that, Craig? Stop block. Yes, they are stop blocks. Thank you. I almost said that, but I'm losing it. So I want this here. I have found these very cool because if I want to change it just a little bit, I can look at these little lines right here, kind of like the grids on cutting on a saw. You watch those. So if I make both of these the same and put them in the same row, it should be exactly the same type of cut. It could be. And it's not my own fault. Okay. Like a piece of wood, you'll have to square off the end before you start. I'm taking this. You can hold your, they have a pistol holder, which you can use, and it runs like this. You can hold it like a pencil and use like this. I go like this, which is how I was taught. I was also taught to barely make a sound on the glass. So when I'm cutting the piece, it should make kind of a scraping sound, not that high-pitched chalk scraping sound, but a scraping sound. But I've been reading lately that it shouldn't even make a sound. It'll be a cleaner break if it's not made a sound. But what I'm doing is pressing on the glass. The diamond wheel here is pushing the glass away and making a dent in the top of the glass. And I'm going to use this glass cutter press slide. Put this in that. Hear that?
Should you be wearing safety glasses now?
You are so good. Yes, I should be wearing safety glasses now. Then I took the grocer scissors right there on that line, pushed, and it broke. And it did not break straight. Did you notice that right there? I would have to grind that off. This could not be the part I used. I'd have to do something else. Okay. I'm going to get my safety glasses. So if I wanted to make it a narrow thing, I've now put a 90-degree angle on my stained glass. Oh, there are two different tools. I would lay this here up against my stop block. And again, this cutter side assists me making it straight up and down. This is the first year I've ever used a straight up and down guide. I've always had to do it by myself. Hand tools. You can see this little cut in here. See that little, okay, you see that? Do you see that? A scratch, exactly. And I put the tool, the line right there, on that line, and it cuts. Now, if I wanted to cut a piece, let me do something fun. Let me find a piece that has a line or two in it. I have lots of glass to check out, to play with. Okay. You can see this lines in this. Let's say I wanted the lines to go a certain direction. Like right here, the piece that's broken and the one that's mirroring it. I want them to go a certain direction to show the line of the feather. So I would put my pattern piece, I'm going to show you these two. What shall I make? Which simple, I'll just make a curl because if I ask you, you'll make a tree or something. I can't do a tree. Okay. Notice those little lines of paper there? That's what pattern scissors do. It gives you that little space. So I could, do you want to just take that and show it around? I'll cut another one. Okay. Here's a pattern I'm working up, so I might as well share with that. I have been intrigued by a few glass pieces that I've seen that is a wilting daisy look. It looks like it's not reaching up to the sky, it's kind of going, oh, okay. So I have been playing with that. I wanted this to be the inside. And I didn't really like this one, it looked too peppy. This one looks a little too peppy too. So I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So I keep drawing them over and over again. This one was too wilted, so I didn't even go on with that. But I came up with, that's not good. This design. Okay, so I'm going to make this piece of glass. When I made this design, any of these designs, I had to look at how I'm going to cut the glass. Okay. If I cut a piece that I want right here for the pattern, that might be beautiful, but I can't cut this. It's too deep of a circle. So I'm going to have to extend a line or add a line or a break somewhere to make it show up, to make it be connected like a puzzle, but still part of the design. So I wanted to play with that. So in this rendition, I added leaves on the bottom. So all these can be cut. This right here and this right here might be a difficult cut with the 2 points. I might try it because I'm cutting into it, and if I take this as a big piece of glass, I might be able to grind it in there. But I also just might add a line in there on either side. But I want to add it in such a way it won't disturb the pattern or the beauty of the design. For the these I can cut, this I can cut, this I can cut. There is almost a hinge line in here. I had to check for hinge lines, but it's going to be broken up by that and this. So this pattern's just about it. I don't see the last one, am I? Yes, I did. Then I went to Jean's. Yeah.
When measuring the glass, do you allow for a kerf, which would be that you would fill with the cane and or whatever, your copper and all that kind of stuff?
The pattern scissors will give you that space.
Ah.
So
I did see the piece of paper, but I didn't realize that's what you're doing. Okay.
yeah, leaving that space in there. So when they go around a corner, they'll be just evenly apart if I cut the piece correctly. Okay. So I went to Jean's glass shop yesterday to pick up those pieces so you could see something in reality. And he had some agates, and they were beautiful. And so I picked up 10 of them, 10 for $1, I thought was okay, and I brought them home. And I decided I'm going to put this rock right here. So it's not all going to be glass. But then I had to change my design. So I had this design here. I put the rock in there. I changed where the pieces, the leaves went up on up to there. I've decided that I'm going to take and make Might be difficult because it means small pieces, but I'm going to take and make things that might come out like stamens coming out of the pad, so that'll cut that up, make it easier to cut. I put a stem in here. I made sure the stem started from here and went to the other side, that even though I'm going to cut 2 pieces of glass, it looks like one, so when I cut the glass, I will cut it with the grain going the same direction. Now, we have grain in wood. It's different than grain in glass. Grain in glass is the texture or the color changes. Grain in wood is how the tree grows. Glass will change shapes like wood. It'll cup if you don't have it reinforced. You saw wood, you break glass, and we call them cutting. There's a lot of variations. So,
I have a question on the agates.
yes.
How thin are the agate pieces that you picked up?
Wherever my purse went. They're thinner than the glass, which might cause a problem.
Cut like that.
No, I'm not cutting it. I'm adding it, kind of like a filigree. They just drew my attention. I'm ADHD and love color and shape. Okay, they're in here. Take them and pass them around. I've chosen one of those, something. So you can see through them. They're small. I could put copper foil around them. They won't melt. I'm going to make sure I don't overheat them because I don't know if they'll crack or not. And they're going to be a variety of color, similar to another piece of glass, but it's a natural color. Now, if they didn't go with the colors I was going to do, I'd probably choose a piece of glass. But I really like variety. So I want to check my pattern, wherever that went, for my personal ability to cut. I want to check my pattern for any hinge places. I want to check my pattern to make sure it looks like what I want it to look like, that all the lines are contributing to the design. So I won't put just a line out here and break it in some place. I added leaves to this, which I really didn't want, but it'll make the pattern pieces easier to cut. So I will take this and I will take it on a copy machine and make 3 of these. Make 3 patterns. It's kind of important to make 3. I thought that was silly. At least one of them's going to be wasted, right? But it's not. You cut your glass. I was going to show you, there's a side here that's more flat and more textured. I want to cut on the flat side. And this, it doesn't matter if it's wet for cutting, but it matters if it's wet for the magic marker I'm going to put on it. So, drying it off. I don't need to use this Morton System straight edge for this. I will look at my glass and I will actually waste a lot of glass by choosing where I want the design to be. So if that was going to be a blue flower, I might cut the shape like that. So the blues I want are there. If it was going to be in the shadows, I might cut it over here where it would look more shadowed. I would choose the glass design to where I want to cut. So first, I can't cut in the middle of a piece of glass. The whole thing will break. So I want to figure out how to cut this And that's not actually a shape I'm ever going to use, so it's just going to be a waste anyway. But how I'm going to save as much glass as possible. I'm only going to cut one piece out of this, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here and save this piece of glass. It's bigger. I can use it for other pieces somewhere. And I don't have to use a straight edge. It doesn't matter because I'm wasting the glass. I scored from here to here, so I'm going to take my Grosjean scissors, pliers, and go from there to there. And I noticed I broke right here. This is the edge of the glass as it was formed. It's thicker. I broke right there. It's thicker, so I'm going to take the edge. Sometimes I go like this so I know where my... Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it's just a waste of my energy. Then I'm going to take my Grosjean scissors, pliers, and it cut. You like the tapping? Thank you. I am going to look at this as to how best to cut it. I'm going to cut from the edge down to the middle, but I can't cut all the way around, and I already know that. So maybe I'll cut this right here so the small part's gone. And I'm going to try to do that now. And then I'll cut the two sides. There's also an angle on this. The sharper angle is a part to the glass. This one goes almost up and down. It's almost a 90 degree. I put that away from the glass. Now I drew, this is the line I cut, I scored right here. I don't know how it's going to be. This is very thin. It might break right there. That's okay. Yeah, it did. See how it broke? This is a chance to use my Grosjean things. The top is what's on top. I hold these tight on the part I want to break off, and I'm going to pull this way. Okay, came off.
And the flat was on top.
And the flat was on top. It holds the glass here. The bottom just holds it down. And there's a shard in there I don't have to worry about. And I would have a wastebasket here for safety and dump these immediately because they're too small to use. Yeah. I'm not going to cut all day. Thank you. The magic marker, the line, the inside of the line is the size I want this piece to be. So when I'm scoring it, I score on the line on the inside. Again, if I make it too big, I can grind it off. Make it too small, and I can't add it. I'm going to have to change another piece or recut. In wood turning, you use your body. You move your body around. In this, you also do that. So those pieces came off. This is almost a half circle. I don't know how it's going to turn. I got to do it. I'm tapping from the bottom side. It's not going to cut clean. Oh, surprise. Cut clean. Okay, so this would be one petal. Now I had cut my piece apart. jumping around all over for you guys, sorry. Let's say I was doing this with a spider in it, spider web, and that was one of the ideas I had. I would take my scissors, my pattern shears, and for this pattern I was going to use a crystal from a chandelier. I was going to add it as a spider. See all those little lines? All that little, you can see that? If I wanted the background to have one kind of glass, one piece of glass, I could cut all my pieces out like that, lay it on there, and use the magic marker. Then I could cut those pieces later to grind them and put them back together. But this also works to not lose a piece when you're cutting like a 250 piece of glass. So I would take this, I would cut the whole thing like this. And then when I was...
You use the third piece to put your pieces that you cut out.
Thank you. I hadn't finished that. I'm going all over the place. I appreciate you. You have one piece that you cut on. You have one piece on your layout board, and this is my layout board. And I might cover that with plastic because any liquid I have or water will ruin that if I didn't. Okay, so I can lay it out. So as I'm going, I can put my pieces down, my pattern's down there. I could put my piece on it, I know where it's going to be, and then cut the other pieces. As I'm getting enough pieces that they need to fit together, and again, this is all relative, if I have one piece cut too big or one piece cut too small, I don't want to have to recut all the pieces. So I'm going to grind them. I'm going to foil them as I'm going. I'm going to see how they fit, maybe have to regrind it. Maybe I'll grind this piece, maybe I'll grind the piece next to it so it fits close enough that it is about this far apart from each other. And if I have the foil on it, then I already know the distance and I could pin them together. The Morton system has a variety of pins that we had all over the floor before, and they can be used to hold the glass down where you want it, and that is about the right size for 2 pieces of foil, so you don't have to foil at that time. You start fitting it together. This is where the skill and the tediousness and the patience comes in. I cut glass all day long, but it may not fit, so I better start getting it to fit as I go. Then, you guys are getting tired and I don't blame you, it's almost time up too. I cut the pieces and I want to grind them. This is another safety thing. This may not be all that safe right here. Yeah.
How's that? So is there a strategy that you work from the inside and work out? Did you say that? Is that the easiest way to make sure things kind of
I work from the inside out.
Okay.
On this one, I work from this out. I cut this piece first and I make sure this fits and this fits and this fits. For pieces that are, I have a piece that's almost symmetrical, one on the other side and the other side, and they're almost mirror. I do the main pieces exactly together, so they look like together, and I lay them on the pattern piece, and I work really hard to get them even before I cut the background pieces. So like the strong, say this was several different pieces, this was all background. These were the main pieces. I'd cut these because they all have to be exactly the same or pretty close to exactly the same. I would lay them down and solder them kind of together and then make sure that I cut this out right here. I cut it out evenly. I can, for this piece here, I started from the top here. I made this first, and then I made the two outside, and these two, and then I cut this one because this had to fit in there, but I wanted to make sure these all fit on the outside first. I had this all tacked together, which is tacking is a method of soldering. It's already ground, it's already foiled. You just put a little bit of solder on certain places so it doesn't move around. So I had it all tacked so it won't move around before I even cut this piece. And I took a piece of paper underneath it and I outlined it. Then I cut the piece and I ground it to fit in there and put the foil on it, and then I put it in. Just because it made sense to me to do that. For the outside here, I kind of put lines where I knew I needed to have them lined so they would not distract from the feather. I drew this to be the right size. I put the feather in there. Then I drew around the feather. I put a pencil line around the feather and put lines where I wanted them to connect from the feather to the outside edge. And then I cut the pattern piece and put it together. I think you would do this even if you followed a pattern, a bottom pattern or something, or a pattern book, because it just makes sense, because you're trying to make everything relative to what you want. Safety device. I don't want to be splashed with water, but I also don't want the shards to come up and hit me. So if I was using this and actually looking down here, and I can't trust myself, I kind of go like this. So I wouldn't have to have safety glasses, but I'm going to keep safety glasses on because I go like this. There's water in here. This is my grinder. Right here is the bit. Show you. This is the only electric tool I have. This is the bit. There is a sponge right here that keeps the bit wet. There's water in here. All electricity is set up there. I have this holder that fits in there. And there are a variety of heights of holders you can do. And this sponge I made. You could buy expensive stained glass sponges, but I will go to the dollar store and get something that's not polyester and put it in there. And it's been well used, but it holds the water. I put at least 2 cups of water in there. That seems to be what I need to do for here. And as I'm grinding, it's going to do that rotation. I'm going to hold this up here. This is where I might get cut. So I'm very careful where I put my fingers. Make sure they don't slide. You don't shove it against it hard like the router table. You just put it up there and let the bit do its thing, and you run it around there.
Well, you're supposed to do it that way on the router table, too.
Exactly. I was trying to say the same, but yeah. I have known people that not. I think that's why I like the router table so much, because I started this woodworking 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember. And I took to the router table very fast. Just loved working it. That's the best tool ever, I thought. And then when I pulled out my stained glass, I thought, well, that's why. I'm used to it. So I could turn it on. Okay, that's all I'm going to do because I want you to see the difference. It has little pieces of glass dust on it. The glass dust can get in your eyes. Be careful with that. So, Okay, this piece can be taken around. Hold it carefully. There's some sharp edges because it broke where it's broke. So I would do that, we'll put that together, put all the pieces on. I have my pattern piece here. I have my straight edges if I want a square piece. I would hook this up against this. I would take these tools. In fact, for the pieces, the 8 glass pieces I made for my lamp, I set up the jig for the size, and then I made sure the glass fits in it. Take those pins I had right here. Oh, and a little hammer helps. I have a little bitty hammer. And put them in there. And if my glass doesn't fit in this, and this is the size I want it, then I need to do something with my glass. Okay? And I put another piece here. It wouldn't have the ring on it yet, so it'd fit right there. So I cut my pieces, I grind my pieces, I foil my pieces, I put them on top of the pattern so I could see the pattern underneath. They're all foiled. I tack it very carefully with my soldering gun, soldering wand. This is not necessary, but it's very handy because this keeps the tip of the wand not touching metal or floor. Every time it touches something, heat's coming away from it. So if I touch it to the wood, it's cooling it down. If I keep it in here, it's right in the center. I was taught to clean my wand with a piece of sponge, and I wet this down and put it right here. I use my wand, I'm soldering, and then I wipe it off. And then I put it back in. That's me. Sorry, Harley. What have I not shown you? I haven't shown you how to solder. We didn't? Haven't shown you how to foil. Any class you take will show you these things. These bevels have not been ground. You don't have to ground them if there's no shards on them. I sometimes grind them just to make them a little rough for the foil to fit a little bit easier. Take my foil and I separate it from the backing. Did everybody get a piece of foil to have? Play with? See what it looks like? And sometimes it's hard to separate. Okay. I have a backing that protects the adhesive. And this is black interior foil. I put it down like this. I connect my piece to that, to the foil, the adhesive to it. I try to see both sides even because I want both sides to have the same amount of solder on it. I go around.
Is it real tight or taut?
As tight as I can get it. I don't stretch it, but it's tight against there because I don't want any folds in it. Now you're going to have folds in the corners, and that's where you burnish it. I use this or the edge of a magic marker, and I burnish it. I do the outside, so I'm doing the edge right there, and then I'm folding it over a little bit here. And I'm not doing it real tight yet because I'm going to have to do the corners. Go to the next side, burnish it against the edge on either side, burnish the edge on either side, burnish the edge on either side, decide which side I want to lay it down on. So I'm going to have to lay it down to make it tight, but I don't want these corners to be neat. So I look at them and try to fold them in such a way that it makes a square when I'm doing that, and I put it down. I'll come back to it in a minute. And then I work real hard at burnishing it around the edge of this piece and folding the corners over. Make it as tight as I can there. Turn it over to the other side. Try to get out any wrinkles. It'll be like soft folds, or it might be really hard wrinkles, and I work hard to get them out. So this piece is ready to put on my pattern. It's ready to be tacked to another piece or ready to be soldered. This is going to go in here. So I would take this and do the same thing. Only this is a little more difficult because it's odd shape. It's lots of points. So I have to, and it has not been ground. I can't really do this right now because it's not been ground. There's too many shards on it. It'd be too uneven. But I might start here, go around, here, here, and here. If it breaks, I just start again. I kind of overlap it a little bit and make it go on there. Then I put them together on my board. And I'm pretending soldering since I don't have any pieces ready. I apologize for that. Newbies tend to want to paint the solder on. You're not painting the solder on, you're not globbing it on, you're laying it on. So you lay the solder down and you start at one side, and I just let the solder stay where it's at and kind of make it melt in there. And then go to another piece. I would do it on a different section so that I would not have I would not go around completely this piece and then go to another section. I would do a line, do another section of the glass, come back here, maybe do another line far away from that one to let them cool down so I don't have any heat stress. Come back, put another piece on, that kind of thing. Because if you don't, you're going to have a crack. Living proof. Living proof. When you're totally done, you need to wash your piece, your completed piece. You take it, make sure it's cool. This is water soluble. This will not melt. You can put it in water, put soap on it. You do not want to put any harsh cleaners on it. Do not put ammonia on it. Do not put window cleaner on it. Soap and water is good enough. And you soap and water it. And you clean it off. And you use your little sponge, your little brush, because there's going to be little pieces of solder in a lot of places. I have to sometimes take my fingernail and take them off. And they're going to be little pieces. You want a solder that is rounded here. You don't want it flat. So while you're cleaning it, you look at it. You might have to go back, add more flux, then solder it again. But you want it rounded. That adds strength to the joint. It also adds beauty to the joint. So you do it, you lay it down, you solder it, you wash it. If you're going to patina it, they suggest to get the soap scum off that you have put on it now, they suggest taking white vinegar and washing it, drying it off, and then you put the patina on. The black patina, I have rubber gloves on, safety issue. This is a chemical. Still have this on. I don't want anything to come up on me. When I'm soldering, I have safety glasses on. I don't want any of the solder to come at me or the flux to come at me. And I take a rag and I just put it all over there. Kind of like I am, I'm going to soap down a kid. You know, I put it all over. The other side too, all over. And I set it down. And I wait for a few minutes. I usually wait 15 minutes. I have waited overnight, doesn't hurt anything. The only time it might hurt is if you have iridized glass. Then you take this, take it to your soap and water. Use warm water so you're comfortable, but Glass doesn't really care if it's cold or hot. So use warm water and wash it off. Then I have wax I use on my wood. I take the same wax, carnauba I think it is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, I use that, put it on the edges. It'll hold the patina on. It'll seal it. It'll make it a little more shiny. It's pretty. Both these pieces have been waxed. This one has not been waxed. If it's not waxed, you're going to get a variation in color of the solder. Let's see. Add your rings if you want to hang it by that. Add the zinc. The zinc should be added while you're soldering the whole piece. And I think you're done.
So is the patina more for the metal or for the glass?
It's only for the solder, only for where the metal is. And it changes the color. So if you do nothing, it's going to be the color of the solder, which is this. If you add patina, that's done nothing. It's going to make it black. You can also get a copper patina if you want. So instead of black, it would be copper looking, like a penny, like a new penny.
So will it do that on its own over time?
It will change colors. This is 20, 30 years old. This is what it changes to if you don't do anything. This is just kind of mucky. The angel was sent, it was sent along with the wreath over there. It was sent to be chromed. And I asked for this color of chrome. I think I asked for gold. It could be any color. And they brought it back, and I didn't have to do anything to it. They did it all. But this, even over time, has changed. It looks a little bit rough. Did everybody get a copy of the 14 pages of copious notes? Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
So you're taking that metallic tape and you're taping it around each piece, and then you put them together as solid gold pieces of metal tape together. Is that what you're doing?
Correct. You're laying the solder down between the pieces, and that's what holds them. The tape adhesive is what holds things to the glass, and glass in there. But the solder holds the pieces together.
So how do they do that in the French cathedrals? Very careful.
Very carefully. They had a similar technique, but it didn't involve any power sources. They used, this can take off the shards, so if I wanted to, I could take this along here, and it'll take the shards off. It's labor intensive, but you can do that. Sometimes I do it if I have a real sharp shard and I just want to pick up the glass. But they are very skilled back then. And they also have lots of filler in there. If you really look, some of the copper around in a cathedral over in France, sometimes you'll see some of the copper between the two pieces of glass is still showing. Sometimes the solder is not even. It'll be bumpy or flat. But we don't really see that because our eyes look for the beauty of the glass. And that's what we see.
So were they using like an H shape of lead that went around each?
Possibly, but they'd have to make that too.
Yeah.
Whatever they used, they had to hand make them. They did not have machines like ours. They might have had some machines, but not like ours. It's like going from a pedal sewing machine or a pedal lathe to an electric sewing machine, electric lathe. Any other questions? Please, I brought the glass for you to touch, pick up. I brought the puzzle pattern pieces for you to look at. I brought this for you, and I'm touchy-feely, and I expect you to do that if you want to. Okay? I'm done. Thank you. You're welcome.